Hi everybody, my name is Michael Barton, and you might know me better as the gamer Fatality, or better yet, actually xFatality, because Fatality is somebody else, and he became rather famous through Quake. This video mostly goes into the process of me liking Quake so much, wanting to become one of the best players out there, and then realizing, well, I don't really have what it takes, but I really like the way that the art is done in this game. And a lot of that stuff sort of stuck with me as a kid. I was sort of a bit more autistic than the rest, and I started to really look at buildings and architecture and really think like, wow, I want to do this kind of stuff too. I want to be an architect or even a virtual architect for that matter. And I started to get into map editing. So this video is a bit of a history of my map editing and where it went and where it could have gone and some of the interesting things that I went through. Basically, when I started off, I played Doom. A friend of mine showed it to me, Doom 2 actually. Then eventually it became Quake, which I wasn't really impressed by. But then Quake 2 came along, and Quake 2 was amazing. And then Quake 3 came along, and I had to get that. I had to become the best gamer in Quake 3. I have to non-stop play that game. And, well, anyway, it didn't take long for me to realize I wasn't that good. But decided I wanted to get into map making for the game. I started making some really rudimentary stuff as tests, really. And it started off with like a box and like a weird staircase, like an air-based staircase. So that was just sort of floating in midair, and I had random colors in a room. It was like red and green and blue, and it was way too small. In another room, which was somehow attached to that, there was like what seemed like a sort of castle front, if you will. You could storm it, if you will, but obviously there were people that were able to like set themselves up in a little window. Well, long story short, I don't have anything to show about this anymore. This was some of the earliest files ever, and this was at a time when I did not make any backups of sorts. Well, as much as I can't show you that, there is a whole lot of stuff that I can show you. A lot of stuff was documented thanks to the fact that I used a lot of this skill to aid in my art class developments. So a lot is in my art book. This is my art book from back in the day. Just to give you a glimpse of some of the stuff that's in here. This is a map that I worked on a lot that I am very proud of, and I will dive into more detail later on. It's called xFatality. So after this square world, I decided to do something similar to the very first map in Quake 3. This was the one where you had to fight against a ranger. Now, obviously, no one will remember exactly which map that was. It was the encounter where you had like it was a brownish map. You had two statues. There were some lava lines in the ground, some weird moving textures in the center. You had a big fireplace in the middle, and you had like two ways around, and they would lead to a big room with like a mouth in it, almost like an alien mouth, if you will. And at the back of the mouth there was an armor. Well, anyway, I made a level similar to that, and I'll show you a picture of that here. And it was just an experiment. I started to realize that a lot of detail went into the trim. So that's sort of like the edges. If let's say you have a platform on the ground, it's the edges around it where you add a different texture, and it symbolizes the end of the platform, if you will. And it can be used for walls, it can be used for all kinds of things, but the point is that it was a brush. So a brush is a cube, and you can sort of cut that into pieces, like cut off edges, make it have more sides, and so that's just a technical term, if you will, but they called it a brush, and you would add a brush onto another brush to create the trim, and you could do that endlessly. I obviously also used the abilities in Quake 3 to create the curved stuff, so you have a lot of spikes in the game, you have a lot of archways in the game, and it's unique in Quake 3 in the sense that the farther you go away, the more the level of detail decreases. Now this is predefined, sort of how it sort of knows what things it can and cannot render when you're at a distance. So a curved edge would eventually just become a two-pointed edge the further you go back. So Quake 3 did a really good job of that. And I obviously took that to a whole different level. So there was excessive use of this in that map. It never really took off. I played it against some bots, and that's where that stranded. Well, then I wanted to up the ante, so I thought of this cool idea of creating what I called the rocket base. Now, the rocket base didn't really take off, reason mostly being due to the fact that there was a lot of rock walls that I wanted to create. So I had to do a whole lot of editing with regards to points and stuff and making sure that they connected to each other. That was pretty difficult. The Quake editor does not work like the Unreal editor where you carve out stuff, but in the Quake editor you actually have to add stuff constantly. So it created a lot of leaks, and if there's a leak during the rendering process, then it doesn't run how it should in the game, and it just tries to show you everything all the time, which eventually would lead to a lot of lag and inefficiencies. So unfortunately I gave up on Rocket Base, but I do recall that it had a lot of cool things in there, like I don't know, there was like an underground sort of chapel. There was a certain place where indeed there were obviously meant to be rockets that were launched, so there were a lot of jump pads there as well. And I had a lot of like textures in mind that I would create myself to create a new atmosphere almost, if you will. Next up was what I referred to as Doomguy. Now, Doomguy was another map that I created, which was, again, another experiment. It was a squarish map. It was like a tower, and at the bottom there's a lot of lava and like a dangerous area you don't really want to walk around. And the next level up had like a platform, where you could actually run around. And this is like, let's say this is no bigger than like a gym, if you will. Like the size of the level is no bigger than a gym. Like the area, the platform that you can run around on is yay big. So it's not meant for a whole lot of players. It was like for 4 players. And so this square sometimes had cutouts where you could go out into the edges, and they had tunnels and stuff so you could pick up items and stuff. But the main arena was in the center. Now it really consisted of layers. So the bottom layer was really dangerous, lots of lava. The second layer had this primary place where you could fight, and the third layer was kind of really odd. It was pretty much just an arch going like this and an arch going like that, where they sort of came together in the center. And we're talking about an archway that's like just wide enough for one person to walk over. So this was really impossible to actually do anything up there other than just enjoy the view down below. But one thing that was funny, which I was kind of experimenting with, was that I took the image of the Doomguy from Doom, so the way he looked in a multiplayer match, and put him on like a trophy case almost, if you will, in the center at the top of the map. And I was messing with mip maps and some commands like picmip or something like that. I forgot the name. But I was trying to get it to render pixelated. Well, I could never figure it out. It was always coming out fuzzy because it was obviously a low resolution image, and I figured there was a way to use shaders and whatnot to get it to render accordingly. Well, anyway, so beyond mapping, I also did a whole lot of texturing, and that was just a texturing experiment. I kind of liked the level, but I have to admit that in the end it wasn't very feasible. It was just another experiment. So after Doomguy came a pretty interesting map. I created what I referred to as Castle Storm. Now, when I was younger, there was a board game called Castle Storm. Or at least as far as I can remember, it's called Castle Storm. But I actually I got the game. It looked cool. I never figured out how to actually play the game. But all I knew about the game was you had to create a castle. And one person was behind the castle, if you will. At least that's how I sort of pretended to have to play it. And the other person was attacking the castle. They had like a long walkway and a little forest in between it. And the castle, it was just great. It looked cool. It was like a fun game. It was like a cool concept. So I thought, I got to create something like this in Quake, And that's probably the point in time where I should have realized, like, yeah, I should not only be making maps for Quake, because this is obviously a map that can be used for like other types of games, like let's say Team Fortress, if you will, because yeah, it's literally a fortress. Well, anyway, I took it to a whole other level. I created this massive map. I cut out a moat. I created a castle that had like a drawbridge over the moat. It had the 4 corners, obviously, with the big towers. It had huge blocks, like cutouts like this, so you could stand there and shoot down from them. And yeah, it was awesome. The walls on the sides, I remember, were sort of like the rocket base walls, where I sort of like made it look like big chunks of just rock, like just lying around in the middle of the big field. The field was flat. I think I probably wanted to go towards some sort of wavy, bubbly thing in the end, but I never really got to that because I spent most of my time focusing on the castle itself and the interiors. Now, inside, it was absolutely awesome. You could climb each tower. There were jump pads. There were staircases. You had second layers. I remember at the bottom there was like a well. I think I made a chicken pen even, which was sort of useless, but it would have been a nice, visual feature. I went as far as to create multiple rooms for like stables for where the horses could be, and obviously they would be like stuffed with weapons and ammo and such. And this actually was a pretty successful map. I do admit I recall having a lot of trouble with the leaks by the walls and the outer walls where all the rocks were. But I mean, I could have easily solved that technically. I could have just said, okay, no more walls like that. Just make flat walls for the time being, or some big, big, big boulders, walls that really represent weird form of rock. I didn't do that. But I remember the map being absolutely fantastic. It was really cool. It was just, and I remember playing it with a bunch of people as well. Like in my clan days, like this was actually a map we properly played. So I guess I could actually go as far as to find out from some of those clan members if I know one at least that I still talk to, and ask him, if he remembers this at all, and see what he has to say about it. But I remember the map was so detailed, if you will, that it started giving me errors when it came to the rendering process. So I started having things like where it said I just have too many brushes. So as I said before, a brush is like a 3D cube, if you will, in space. And, for all those walls that I created, a typical castle wall, which goes like this, like this, like this, there was just too many of them. So eventually it just crapped out on me. I mean, these days, undoubtedly, you can take that code somehow because it's all open source and fix it, fix the limits. But back in the day, we're talking like maps that took up maybe like 40 or 50 megabytes of memory of a system that only had 128. So there was really constraints in that regard. So beyond the rendering issues, it was cool. It was a proper map. It was one of the first ones I was really proud of. Again, unfortunately, I don't have any of this anywhere anymore. It's gone in oblivion. It's just gone. I mean, the best I can probably do is draw out some of this stuff that I had in my mind. It's there. I can see it. I just can't show you. But imagine a castle. Imagine it rather simple in the sense that lighting wasn't done yet. You know, I didn't have very many atmospheric effects. There was weapons placed accordingly. There weren't all the weapons in the game weren't in there, and it would have had it all. I think actually a good example is there's a map in Unreal Tournament that's also sort of castle. It's like floating in the sky on an island, and that was actually pretty cool because it has a whole tunnel network underneath. I did not come up with anything like that yet. It was all meant to be like in the courtyard to take place and outside of the castle to have like firefights there. So I admit the castle in Unreal was actually cooler, but for me, having thought of that myself, I thought it was a pretty good idea. And let's see. So okay, the next thing I did was it was more of an experiment. I told people at school about this, especially in art class. There were some women I tried to impress, and I told them that I was good at this stuff, and they were like, "Well, what is this? You know, I have no idea what to even imagine." So I was like, "Well, imagine I draw something now, and then I make it 3D in the computer." And they were like, "Oh, you can do that? Cool, cool." So in the end, I said, "Yeah, I'll draw something up now, and then tomorrow I'll bring you the 3D rendition of it." So I did. I drew this up. Here, I'll show you an image right now. It's just some futuristic train station, if you will. And then I went home and I created this. Now I took at least 4 images. Luckily, I have these images because, again, I don't have this file. Not that this is really hard to make because this is really basic. But you can see how it went from, just a drawing to a 3D rendition. And then eventually it went into this, where I properly lit the environment, and you can sort of, it gives you an eerie feel. I mean, I guess I could have done more with this. It could have become a real map somehow, or it could have been the beginning of a real map somehow. But it was just an experiment. It was just to show off, show some people that I knew what I was doing. I actually did something similar to this at one point, which was to create a stage, like a 3D, like almost like it was a Gothic themed Quake stage, obviously, which was, imagine you won a match, and for some reason or another, you'd see yourself standing there like, yay, I won, and have the second place person next to you and the third place person next to that. That's the kind of stage that it was. So it was very simple. I drew it out again, then created this 3D rendition of it. Nothing particularly, worth mentioning. But again, excessive use of the sort of curved meshes. Now, all of this so far was sort of not going anywhere. I wasn't really creating maps for any sort of real use beyond in my own friend environment. This is the point in time where I started to realize I put too much detail into maps. So I went as far as to say, like, okay, I'm going to create a map for another game. And what games use the Quake engine? Well, at the time, at least, there weren't a whole lot, but one of the ones that did was the Half-Life engine. Now, Half-Life was made really popular thanks to things like Counter-Strike. So I started playing Counter-Strike, started seeing how that was non-science fictional. It was obviously fictional, but it was just real-life environments, real-life guns, which had its appeal in its own way. And before I knew it, I realized like I can make maps for this game too. But basically what happened is that I went on vacation, and we were meant to go to a certain apartment in a resort that we were staying at, and there was massive storm damage. So we're talking broken windows, broken mirrors, we're talking flooding and such. So we were upgraded to a penthouse, which was awesome because free upgrade. So we went to the penthouse. Now this was the top floor of a building that we went to on vacation multiple times, and it was absolutely incredible. Like it's like being upgraded to business class on a flight. You can't even fathom what this is like. So, and beyond obviously the difficulties of being yay high and having to like build something unique up there, it was done. It was a 2-story apartment with super nice interior designs, lots of extra excess room, and I don't know. I guess I was there at one point and I thought to myself, wow, this would make a great hostage rescue mission for Counter-Strike. So I went as far as I could with regards to recreating that entire environment in Counter-Strike, so in a map editor. And I can show you some of that right now. So here you'll see just the wireframe model, I will switch to a version where the walls are colored so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. And I have to say that this map was never finished. It was never textured. It was pretty much done with regards to walls and doors and such, but it was never textured. And beyond that, it never had any kind of playthrough. So there was no way to really, figure out how to do things accordingly. But I can show you how I envisioned playing it. Now, there's a stairwell on either side of this building. Obviously, I don't have the whole building rendered because I only have the top 3 floors. I sort of envisioned that when the map started, you run up the stairs and then you go to the front door of this penthouse, and in the meantime, the terrorists inside, they sort of set up, to like get a good vantage point, if you will. And the idea was you walk inside as a counter-terrorist somewhere. You could find a way. You could go through the access panel to the roof where the air conditioning was, or you could go through the front door. I had yet to figure out how to do other things, like, I don't know, maybe there was a breached wall somewhere that you could go through, or maybe I just made some edits so there was like a back door to some of these places. I don't know. I hadn't figured it all out yet. But there was enough, I mean, it's an editor. I can pretty much change it. It doesn't have to be exactly like the real environment. Speaking of the real environment, I'll put a link below where you can see some pictures of the real environment. Unfortunately, a lot of it has changed since I was there. Among other things, it looks like the kitchen's in a different place, but I mean, you can still see that it was that it's the same place that I have in the map editor. And I can show you the coordinates on Google Maps as well. So again, check the description below for a link to that, so you can check out the real building in at least from the outside in 3D. As Google Maps has that entire environment in 3D. So some of the scenarios I envisioned here, especially, were that you walk in from the main door as a counter-terrorist, and right above you there's another floor. But you can't really see it. The only way you can see it is if you sort of walk inside and you sort of look up over your shoulder to find enemies. So they have a really nasty vantage point there. And obviously there's ways around, so you can kind of try to flank them. But it gave the terrorists really the edge, obviously, to be up there and then have the hostages as well. So it was a really difficult map for the counter-terrorists. But I don't know, I guess I had to play it repeatedly to make it sort of, winnable as well. But obviously, going that extra mile to win is great. So, or going that extra mile and then winning as a team gives you such a great feeling. I loved playing as a team, and all I had to really do is figure out how to make it possible by putting like obstacles there. Like making sure the doors are in your favor as a counter-terrorist, putting, I don't know, an upside-down couch in a place where you could sort of hide behind it and such. So it would be dangerous for anybody to just waltz in. But if you took your time, you were sneaky, you played Counter-Strike the way you should, where you just duck and hide behind stuff and only really show body parts as you intend to shoot, that would have made it a really good map. Maybe there's somebody out there who'd like to, take my map further, and, if you do, please give me some props. So that map really got me going. I was really enthusiastic. That was when I sort of switched more to play Counter-Strike. A friend of mine bought it for me, and I just sort of took it from there. The map never finished, unfortunately, because I guess I didn't really know how to sort of get into that whole world, where I could make it an official release and have it distributed by Valve in this case, or in the case of Quake by id Software, or at one point they even made Quake Live, and I figured that's the perfect opportunity to really push the envelope there and say, like, look, I made these maps. I have this skill set of creating a great map. I know what it's like with music. I hear music. I know it's great. I know I should be making something in that direction as well. Now, I'm not a music maker, so bad example, but I am a map maker. So I've seen maps and I'm thinking, I got to do this too. I got to make it better. I got to do stuff like that. So that kind of never really took off, and that was a bit unfortunate. But then something amazing happened. And the amazing thing that happened was that there was a website called Quake 3 World that announced a map editing competition. And you could win a gigantic video card. It was one of the greatest, newest video cards. So immediately I was just, wow, I was on this like glue. I was like, I have to do this. Like, how many gamers are out there that actually create maps and stuff? So I was thinking there can't be a whole lot of them. And I had the skill set readily available. So I thought, I'm going to do this. I read up on what was required, and eventually I said, okay, I'm going to take all these ideas of all these maps that I've created in the past, and I'm going to do something for real for once. I'm going to make a map that actually can be used. And then it dawned on me. Then I created this xFatality map that I showed you a picture of before. Now I will load the map up now, and I will show you what it looks like. So now before I actually load up this map, I want to go as far as to explain some things about this map in the competition. And what I had realized at the time was that the most fun I'd ever had in Quake on any map was in Q3 DM17. Now I don't exactly know what the map is called, but it's the one where you're in outer space, and it's just the rail gun pretty far in the distance that you can get to through a jump pad. And anyone who's played Quake 3 knows this map, and it's just a lot of jump pads, a lot of rail gunning. It's got a rocket launcher, it's got some armor in the middle, it's got a lot of jump pads in general, and that just sort of, I don't know, it was very playable. You could find a target real quickly, you could get a gun real quickly because you could see everything all the time, and it was just hard to get cover. And it's really a map that's out there. I think it's called like the longest yard, if I remember correctly. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This map was cool. It was an outer space map. Bots played on it terribly. That is something that's a theme that I need to come back to on about later. But I will get to that later. And some of the things that were sort of missing in that map in my mind was more of that Gothic feel. So I figured I'm going to make a space map, I'm going to use the Gothic feel, and I'm going to use what I did with that Doomguy map, which was to create more of a vertical map instead of a sort of just a wide open space, if you will. One thing led to another. I opened an editor, I created a main platform. It was sort of held up by this main wall, if you will. So there was a platform, there was another platform, there was another platform. So these three platforms, they were sort of held up by this main wall at the back. There were two side walls, like gigantic pillars that held up side platforms, if you will, on all those levels as well. There were obviously some floating platforms as well that just didn't hang on to anything, but you got to have that in an outer space Quake map. Yeah, I just sort of, incorporated a ton of the ideas that I already had. So I used the meshes in a big way. I used a lot of trim. I even added an Easter egg. Let's see, I incorporated the use of a friend of mine, one of the clan members. His name is Savage Tiger, and he helped me place weapons. What he did was great. For instance, he came up with stupid things like, make sure that the grenade launcher is up high so you can lob grenades down. That makes sense. Why would you use something like that on a low level where you can do massive damage from above? So we had, projectiles up high. He had a good idea where to put ammo, so it was spread out. He had good ideas with regards to teleports. Oh yeah, and I made a really interesting jump pad, one that's sort of like it launched you, and then it launched you again, and then it launched you yet a third time. So, it launched you at such a speedy vector that even if you held one of the directional keys on the keyboard, you would not be able to steer from the path well enough, so you'd always go 1, 2, 3. You'd never be able to just sort of go one and then it sort of launches you into outer space because you held the direction and you never hit the next jump pad. That said, that was the case for most human players. Bots, however, did not play very nicely on that map, and unfortunately this did definitely affect me when it came to the eventual evaluation of the map by the Quake 3 world people. So it cost me some points. Unfortunately, not a whole lot, as you'll soon discover. It definitely knocked me off of the first place mark for winning the competition. So that was unfortunate. There were some prizes for the second, third, fourth, fifth place, etc. Or at least as far as I remember, probably for the first three only. That was feedback that I got after I was done, after everything was evaluated, that unfortunately the bots played poorly, and that's something I just never really tested. I assumed when I rendered the bot AI, it would just play. But apparently, for some reason that I don't understand even to this day, when the map was being evaluated, it was played against bots. Now, personally, I would not evaluate a map like that. I would play it against real people because real people, they obviously play better than bots. They can sort of see how things are meant to be done in a map as well, a lot better. Well, they didn't do that, so it cost me points. If that were not the case, I could have won. I might have even hit, first, second place. Unfortunately, I was a bit lower than that, but I'll get to that more later. So that was basically the premise of the map, and it was going to be a dangerous map. Yeah, the bottom platform, if you will. If you didn't pay attention, you could fall off into oblivion. Instead of there being a big lava pit, there was just outer space. But without further ado, I guess I'll load it up and walk you through the map as it exists today. All right, now I'm in the map. It's not actually called xFatality, it's called Fatality. How original, right? And the this is the image that I showed you before, only this is actually in the game. And I will go through some of the things that I just described. So, as I said before, there's 3 platforms to this map. We have the bottom floor, the middle floor, and then the top floor. Like I said, it has excessive use of the mesh stuff that I was talking about, the curves. So this is one massive curve. And here this is platform completely made of curves like that. We've got jump pads, one right below me that's made of a complete curve only. This edge here is a nice curve, as you can see. And yeah, actually, this is also nice, worth mentioning right away. This is the railgun at the very top of the level, very similar to that Q3 DM17 as I was referring to, where I really appreciated that long-range railgunning, which was also kind of fun. So the way the map works is pretty much, yeah, you go to the bottom floor, you run around as a player. Here, I will actually load up as a player now. And let's go ahead and jump right on down. So this is the bottom floor. There's a couple things worth mentioning here. There's a big Jesus statue here. So like I said, going with that whole Gothic theme. If you fall off this edge, you're dead. That goes for a whole bunch of these edges. So yeah, you really got to watch out in dogfights or firefights to make sure that you don't fall down. Some ammo scattered around for the railgun here, which is obviously way up there to get again. So the ammo is spread out. You really got to go out of your way to get more ammo for guns. There's some ugly little things here, like you see this little edge here. I don't like how this is sort of transitioning here. I could have done that nicer. Here there's not a whole lot of use of rounded edges. This is more the Quake 1 style, kind of hard edges. But a lot of the trim that I was referring to before, so the brushes alongside the edge of, in this case, a staircase, or here's just a wall, indicating like a short little wall indicating the edge of this platform. Here again you have just grates with all kinds of trim. This trim is a bit different. It's just, yeah, it's not an actual extra brush. It's just a different texture on the side of this. This is not very pretty. I could have used more trim around the edges there. This little walkway at the top here also has trim all around it. Even has lights, as you can see, and they sort of give off a little glow. That's shaders for you. So Quake used shaders, which gave it an effect. This is a jump pad. I will take that in just a minute. Yeah, as you can see, these little yellow things here are also lights. They sort of glow. This jump pad, nothing special. It just brings you, without touching any buttons as you go on it, straight up to the top, where you can get your railgun and do some nasty shooting here. And I also got a personal teleporter, so if I press enter, it'll just teleport me to a random starting point of the game, which is kind of nice to get out of those tricky situations in case a lot of people are shooting at you. So down below here, you can have your little dogfight, and you can also decide to, go up to the railgun here, or you can take this jump pad, or the one on the same one on the other side, which will take you to a slightly higher platform, but I still consider this the lower platform, with more guns. And if you take this guy, it'll launch you to that, which will launch you to that, which will just launch you up to hopefully that area up there. I can show you that right now. So here goes. Jump, turning around to follow the camera. There we go. And now I'm up top. So for some reason, humans could do that very well. Bots could not. Now this was about what I was talking about. This is where I was referring to Savage Tiger's gun placement. So he said put grenade launchers up here so you can lob grenades down. Quite fun. Quite irritating for people below. There we have the rocket launcher on the highest platform. That was obviously also nice, to shoot downward. So yeah, we have the projectiles up top here. You have an invisibility up there, and I think there's another power up here. And there's a trick to getting these. You need to have the rocket launcher for them. So I guess I can show you that real quick. Pick it up, make my way back up there, the unofficial way. And what you'd pretty much do is use this jump pad, which would normally bring you to that platform on the other side with a rocket jump. So here we go. It'll launch me way up high, and I'm invisible. Next time this spawns, it'll be a different power-up. I set it up to be multiple power-ups. Now there's a quad damage right there. Same deal. You have to do a rocket jump from this guy to get it. So, well, I just failed. Let's try it again. Well, I think I made it, but I'm definitely dead. That's how you'd normally do that. So again, that comes at a cost of potentially killing yourself, or at least hurting yourself dramatically. Now we got this little platform in the middle here with the red armor. To get there, you have to be, again, pretty creative. But before we go there, let's look at the official way to get to the first platform, which is through this jump pad. Now, once up here, there's not much going on here. A little dogfight area, little battle up area. Again, a weird texture, default texture from Quake, and a good place to do some killing, but not a whole lot of hiding. Again, hard edges here, which I don't really like now in retrospect, but it is what it is. And again, here's some strange trim to attach this jump pad, but it is what it is. So as much as there's not a whole lot to do down here, but that's okay. So let's go up. Now, back up here, where we've been before with the rocket launcher, this is the creme de la creme. This is like the place to be for anybody who wants to really kick ass. It's the biggest platform, and it gives you a whole lot of space to jump around, dodge stuff. If you really needed to, you could get the red armor by going out here and jumping down. Yeah, it gives you a lot of freedom of space. Yeah, and again, real easy to get to the well, not that easy, but apparently somewhat easy to get to the quad damage. Now, quad damage is obviously great, but it can also be very dangerous. Now, last but not least, let's take you to the Easter egg. Oh, before I actually do that, there's one last thing worth mentioning. This texture is not default. This is courtesy thanks to Savage Tiger. He created this one. I think there was another one he created. That was this one, which can also be seen over here. I'm thinking if there's any more that he created. Not to my recollection, but undoubtedly there's some other stuff. Actually, I know that he created this one, which is part of the Easter egg. I think that's why I kind of thought of this. So this is really difficult. You sort of have to walk up this little edge here, and when you reach this point, you can follow the wall. And well, it's not that fantastic, but here, Savage-like Fatality of Kenny by Fatality with textures from Savage Tiger. So this is actually a teleport, a big health, and this teleport will bring you straight to the railgun. So it's kind of cheap, but yeah, it gets the job done. That's pretty much it for this map. This map obviously took a lot of work, and I got the necessary praise from Quake 3 World for it, and they pretty much said, you would have been a worthy contester, if you actually made sure that the bots worked on this map. It was really unfortunate that I did not check on that beforehand. Quite frankly, there was a couple things about this map that I didn't really like myself either in retrospect. Like here, for instance, this pillar that holds up that platform, it's not at a 45-degree angle, so the proportions are strange. Up here, the pillar looks thinner, and over here, the pillar looks wider. So that's just here, same deal here. It's not correctly built. It should have been at a 45-degree angle, and that would have made that look a lot better. That's one thing I don't particularly like. Another one, which is a much bigger problem, is more evident when you go down below. So you look at this platform, that platform, and that platform. You'll notice, especially in Spectator Mode, that the height between the platforms is off. This one is determined by that gigantic texture up there, but you can clearly see that the height difference between these two platforms is different than the height difference between these two platforms. Now, one could obviously say that this here acts as one platform, and that height difference between this platform and that platform is relatively similar as that platform and that platform. But as I said before, this was sort of all meant to be one platform. So this bottom floor is way lower down compared to the rest, or yeah, way lower from the middle one than the upper one is from the middle one. The distance is just off. It doesn't feel right. It's just strange. Again, here we have that issue where these pillars look a bit strange. I totally oversaw that. It was an oversight, and I should have definitely tried to fix that before I set this map off. That's it for this map for the time being. I say for the time being because something neato happened a few years ago. I hadn't spoken to Savage Tiger in the longest time, but I recently decided to contact him, see how he was doing, and then he told me something neat, which was that he still had a folder that I used on his server from back in the day, which actually contained a couple of my files. Now, what I found out was that he still had the original version of this map. I had a version of this map, but it was lacking the textures. So this guy here, and the one hiding underneath this jump pad, and the Kilkenny, the Kenny texture were missing. They would just render as gigantic, like gray squares with white edges. But he had the original PK3 file. So PK3 is just another. It's just, I don't know, they call it package 3, I guess, or it's a package for Quake 3. But it's just a zip file with a different extension, so you can just open those in zip programs and edit them. But he had the original PK3, which contained the map file, the bot file, and also those 3 textures. So I was thrilled because I had the original copy again of this map, although I hadn't had it for about 20 years. And it made me think, like, the stuff that I don't like about this file, maybe it's time for a remake. And that's exactly what I did. Without further ado, I'm going to load up the remake. And here it is. So, what's different? Well, let's start at the top. The sky is different now. It's just a starry sky instead of a big black sky. These walls on the left have a finite height. So instead of just being like infinitely high, they actually stop. Some more of the stuff that I was irritated by before I can go through right now. So one of the things I like about this platform for the railgun now is that it has walls on all sides. So if you're shooting and you're dodging, you won't accidentally fall off. It's kind of important, I suppose. Same goes for this here. There's a little wall here that'll protect you. Same goes for this here. There's another wall that'll protect you. I don't know what I did with the pillars underneath. Okay, well, it seems I just got rid of them in general because, yeah, why use pillars if you don't need them in 3D space? You don't need them. This seems to have changed. I used to have a little walkway here with which you could fall off. I decided to just widen the bottom floor, I suppose, and I created this sort of floating staircase with, again, lots of walls around it to make sure I don't fall off, so that's definitely a nice addition. This shape seems to be kept, although it's off-centered now, so I moved the jump pad. It's no longer here, it's just more inside of this area. Added a lava pit, so you could technically get out if you got lucky. Generally, lava is not going to keep you alive for very long, though. So this jump pad, I changed some of the architecture here as well. I added some new little, this pillar. I liked this design. I stumbled upon this design at one point and decided, you know what, I'm going to use that. And I think I used it, yeah, I used it over here as well. So this side, this is the other side, it also contains that same staircase, so I just made a copy of that. So that trim problem that I mentioned at the staircase before is just gone now. Unfortunately, I seem to have removed the lighting here. I kind of liked the lighting, but I suppose there was a good reason for that. I added a teleporter at the bottom floor, so, I mean, you can get out of here using a jump pad. You can get out of here using that jump pad. But all those other jump pads that I had here that first sent you from this point up to this extra platform up here, that seems to have gone away. It seems that one of those platforms I kept, I made the map less symmetrical. So this platform is now a replacement of that previous platform. The one on this side is just gone entirely. And I don't actually know where this will take me. I guess we can just go through and find out. It brings me to the top floor, to the grenade launcher. So it brings me absolutely to a completely different area, which is kind of nice. if you really need to get out, then that's the way to do it. What else did I add? Okay, so I added some statues here. I mean, these are pre-rendered in the game, so you can just add them real easily. But the reason I added it, just like these pillars in a random location, is that if you have a firefight down here, or a dogfight, or whatever you want to call it, you have some more places to hide. Because that was something that was definitely lacking in the previous version of this map. You just did not have as many places to hide. So now you do. And there's some little walls. These walls can work in your favor. You cannot fall off if you hit these walls, obviously backtracking against them, but people can fire projectiles and they can hit there, and then the splash damage will still hit you. So it can be dangerous nonetheless. It can be your safeguard, it can be your savior, but it can also be something that kills you in the end. I'm going to jump in as a player now, just because I can show you better how the game plays in that way. So here I am down here again. Imagine I'm having a firefight. I can decide to jump up to the railgun using this guy. I think I even need to make sure I jump here, because otherwise I'll end up in the lava. So here I am, the railgun. I could walk up here and take this jump pad, which is the only other way up, which immediately gives me quad damage. So the quad damage is in a much better location now. This platform, this used to have the plasma gun only, has been drastically upgraded. So now we have this gigantic pedestal, if you will, for the plasma gun. Here's a nice little logo of mine. Haha. There's a teleport here. There's a teleport around the corner here. So there's easy ways to get out of here as well. There's some boxes and stuff, which will obviously give you a lot more cover if you're doing a dogfight, firefight. Sorry, I keep saying dogfight. So that's nice. You can even, be sneaky and climb up and over, and give the height advantage to yourself. And I still have this guy in here, which is kind of cool. The jump pads, the 3-in-1 jump pad, so that leading to that going to that, and then bring you up there, it's still in there for one side because this platform still exists on the one side, but it's been removed for the other side. I just wanted away from the symmetry. So the only way up here now is to drop down from this platform instead of being launched up from it from over here on the bottom floor. So now I'm here. I had to build some sort of walls apparently, or some holders apparently for this platform by the looks of it. For some reason I thought that. Instead of having it float in space like these guys. So yeah, why I did that I don't know, but whatever. Here we go. Let's take these jump pads again. Same deal. They'll bring me up to the top as before. How do I get to that one? Well, that's obviously what this is for. This jump pad. So I'll just take that and show you. It seems I lined these up differently. So in the past, what would happen is you take this and you'd accidentally, by holding backwards, land on the other one that was like here. So they were facing exactly the opposite directions. Now they sort of send you next to the other one, so you can do this kind of circle motion, if you will. It seems I got rid of the invisibility that was up here. Invisibility wasn't a very popular power-up. I think there was also flight as well up there, which was also not a very popular power-up. So those are just gone now. So those explain these platforms, and the bottom platform and this middle platform. I also talked about the real middle platform, so this guy. This guy also changed shape. I used the curved edges a lot more in Quake, so this edge is now, this platform is just a nice egg shape. Alright, let's see what these teleporters do. Oh, and I think I added the armor here. That wasn't there before either. So there's a lot less, by the way, like a lot less edges on which I can get stuck, which is also nice for a firefight. Let's see where this brings me. Okay, this brings me up to this platform that I was saying about earlier on as well, that like, yeah, that 3-point jump pad is no longer here, so you can get to it by taking that jump pad, or you can clearly take a teleport up here, which is also kind of nifty. We have another teleport. Let's see where that brings us. As I thought, it brought you back down below. This will bring you up top. I think this will also bring you up top. So we have multiple ways to get up top, which is good because when you're at the bottom, the last place you want to be is at the bottom. You want to get to the top as soon as possible. So if you're in a pinch, take the teleports or jump pad and bring yourself back up to the top. This has been off-centered as well. This used to be right in the center here. just, bring some balance, if you will, take out the symmetry. The red armor is a nice thing to have, so that's definitely still in there. That weird connection here is gone, so this is just as simple as it gets. This stuff has been spread out. Lots of health up here too, since rockets are painful. The old textures are still in there, and of course the Easter egg is as well, which is a lot more easily accessible now. So I can just walk up like this. Seems I changed this shape. I don't know why. I guess the triangle is irritating to some people. Same old deal. It brings me back up here. So that's pretty much it for this map. So in the end, due to the fact that this map had some flaws, I did not win first place, I did not win second place, I did not win third place, so all the prizes did not go to me, but I won fifth place of about 300 contestants. I spoke to the evaluators, and they told me what was wrong with the map, and I learned from my mistakes, but it's just, yeah, unfortunately, I did not make it in the final cut of the top 3. And the first place winner had some interesting things to the map. He had a lot of his own textures, and he also added a shader that made the floor icy. It just added a whole bunch of elements to the map that was kind of different, which they liked. The recreation was quite fun over the years. I only got to that, as I mentioned, many years after the original was created. This was because Savage Tiger recently helped me get to the original files, and then I sort of started to think like, well, I could take this to another level and, reiterate over some of my ideas from the past and see if I can make it better. Now, it wasn't for a competition anymore, it was just for myself, because whenever I organized the occasional LAN party, I would just fire up that map for the fun of it, because I liked playing it. I thought it was a good map, and of course I created it, so it gave me a good feeling about myself as well. This brought me to another idea, which was that a friend of mine, I don't know his gamer tag, he wanted to organize a LAN party as well, and he came to me. He said, I want your help with this. So I said, okay, let's make a LAN party, and we went all the way, and we created a stupid name for it. It was called MMD, which stood for Mega Munchie Drive, and I was the nerd guy doing all the game stuff. So he was given an old server by his mom, but it didn't really work. I had to try to figure out how to make it work and stuff, but I used it to my advantage. I loaded up a lot of games for everybody to sort of, prepare for the LAN party, or to be able to play at the LAN party. And one of the things that I loaded up was Quake 3, obviously, because I love playing Quake 3. And I thought to myself, I should make a map for this LAN party. So I did. I went all out. I created a new map. This was years and years later. I had a high learning curve to figure out again how to use all the tools. A lot of the tools had been reiterated. I had all kinds of fresh new ideas and stuff. So I thought to myself, how cool would it be to just make a map for LAN parties? So I think I went through this a few times. I created multiple maps for multiple LAN parties, or it may have actually just been the one, and I kept expanding on it. So without further ado, I'll load up the MMD map and show you what I created there. This is the MMD map. Funnily enough, it was inspired by The Edge from Quake 2, as you might be able to tell from this sort of rounded room here. If you know what map I'm talking about, then yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it all started off as just one room, and slowly this just kept becoming more and more rooms. So I think I actually don't know for certain. I was going to say this is the room that I started with. I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't really matter. But it seemed, let's just go with that. So it's just, this map consists of 4 rooms. Like that's one, this is the other. Down this here you have another one, and around the corner here you have the 4th one. Now each room has a unique, I don't know, play element, if you will, to it. I quite like playing on this map. It's good for a lot of players, so I'll just give you the lowdown of what each room entails. We'll start by going back to this room here. So this room here has a small little arena in the middle. Some armor shards, a couple of obstacles to hide behind, some ammo, some guns. This walkway at the top here is great for sniping, so it's got the railgun, and it connects you to the adjacent room. There's another nice little railing thing up here, which gives you some armor, not a whole lot, and it also blocks some shots outward, if you will, if you're standing behind it. So it gives you a little bit of a disadvantage. Otherwise it'd be kind of too easy, so that's sort of why I did that. Then there's this staircase up here, which will bring you to more of the center of the whole map, if you will, which from there obviously you can get to all the other rooms quite easily. I think you could even, if you wanted to, jump from the staircase onto this extra little platform that's over here. Yeah, it looks like you'd have to do that because I can see no other way of getting there. Well, maybe with an excessive jump from here you can get to there. I don't remember how it plays exactly. Um, there's actually footage of this map elsewhere on my channel on YouTube if you want to see how that is. I think I played against bots, unfortunately, but it's a good playthrough and you get a good feel, and I make some epic kills. So yeah, go ahead and take a look at that if you want. Here you can see that interesting pillar that I described in the Fatality map as well. This is a different version of it, though. I think I used it was slightly different, but I kind of like this pillar, so I seem to have used this more after the creation of that map. And then there's one last thing here, which is this sort of stairwell downward, which luckily brings you to a teleport, which is sort of an escape route, if you will. Because if it wasn't, well, what would the use of be going? What would the use be of going down here? Now, again, excessive use of the curved edges. So here we have this outer wall is curved, this inner wall here is curved, this little wall here is curved, this little edge here is curved. But I also use hard edges. I think hard edges are important to give a contrast. Let's go to this room next. So this room can be accessed through just this little walkway here. It can be accessed probably by going up the staircase. Nope, doesn't seem like I can access it through that staircase. I mean, there's easy ways across. This is Quake. You can get across quite easily. Yes, from here, that's pretty much the only way into that room. Let's see if... Oh, no, wait. I can probably go down here. Yeah, I can go down here, and then I can turn right where I end up in this little tunnel, or I can just go straight where I'm sort of in between both of the rooms, but I can make a right turn, and I'll be in there. If I go down this tunnel, where I have a little bit of... tiny bit of obstacles to make a dogfight interesting, or, sorry, not a dogfight, a firefight. So there's a couple ways down. A concept I learned in Counter-Strike was you need to have multiple ways to enter and exit a room, at least 4 usually. I don't know if I adhered exactly to that. I just sort of made sure there was a lot of ways in and out. So that was sort of my way to go about that problem. Some more hard edges here. As I was saying, I don't use curved edges everywhere, so that's kind of good, I guess. This tunnel has that same grate here, so which is nice. You can shoot and still get some cover. You can still accidentally hurt yourself if you use a projectile and hit one of these pillars. So it's not perfect, but if it were too easy, it'd be too easy, and that's not nice either. So anyway, this room here has a nice little obstacle in the center to walk around and have a nice little firefight. It has a nice little plateau here, which we can reach from probably up here or over here quite easily, or maybe even from over there. I'd have to try that out later on. There's a little plateau here. You'd think, how do you get down there? There's actually a little hole right here. So if you drop down in this hole, you land right on top of the armor, and you can just recommence where you started, where you were, in the middle of this fight. This is a jump pad that'll send you up through this very interestingly curved, I don't know, thing. With a bit of movement, you end up on top of the rocket launcher. In a future iteration, I might actually do something with this wall because it seems a bit plain right now, but that's fine. So you're stuck in a corner here, dangerous spot. You can get hit from everything all around you, and splash damage will obviously hurt you too. But assuming you do get away, you can walk across this walkway, jump down for armor, or go further, get this health on the left here, get this armor here, or work your way through to the next room. Is there anything else worth mentioning here? Not really. So how do I get to the next room from here? Well, there's this top part here over the walkway. You can go down obviously the bottom way here, and I think you can go through here, yeah, and then cut to the right. So that's not the 4 ways across, that's only 3 ways across. Maybe not the wisest choice to go into here this way too often, although the upper floor is obviously an advantage because you can see everything and they can hit you harder. Higher ground is always good. So this will just drop you down to the center of the map, where I have just a whole bunch of, from here you can pretty much go to every room, that way, that way, that way, or that way. So that's nice. If you really want to go to the middle of the room, you can just drop down here and work your way across. But if you want to just go to this room, which was sort of the focus, then from here you can either walk like this, jump down here, jump down there. That's a jump pad. There's another jump pad here, so it's a bit of an obstacle course, but it's nice to dodge stuff. You can jump down here onto this plateau, which will give you access to the center of the map again, or you can jump down onto this plateau here, which will, I don't know, it looks kind of like a raindrop slash tier or whatever. I kind of went a bit overboard with all these meshes, but I like it. Here's another one of those meshes. So yeah, we can jump down from here to all kinds of places. We could even be coming in from here, and well, we don't have a whole lot of options here. We can just, you know, go straight, get cover under this plateau, go left, get cover under there, go to the next room perhaps. And yeah, this little jump pad is tiny. It'll just bring you up here. There's a nice little teleport here though, and this grate again, which will give you nice access to that tunnel, that hallway. I think this just brings you outside of this room on the other side of this teleport on the lower floor. So let's see what happens. Yeah, that's exactly what it did. So teleports up here, going through it brings you down here. Nothing special. It's just a one-way street. Yeah. So you know, this is sort of a one-way. You know, if you're stuck in here, like, oh crap, I got to leave, then zoom and just get out like that. So that's kind of nice. Little boxes here, which will help you get cover from the higher places. If you hug them, you can take out some people easily. There's this pillar down here again, giving you some cover at the bottom floor. Lots of armor all around. Well, not a lot, but some. Here's some mega health, so this is definitely a good place to hide every now and then. And yeah, like, oh, some more armor here. So yeah, we've got, and a lot more curved edges. Seem to have gone pretty overboard with that stuff in this room. So this is, let's say, the curved edges room. I like this in the center where it's just one big circle. It's like all the way around, and yet I've incorporated some way to split that up. So here you have another, just a lot of curved edges. Quake 3 was good with that, and I feel that I, you know, took it to another level. I definitely like what I did here with the curved edges. So that's that for that room. Let's go to the next room. Okay, so here we have, let's see, how do we get to the next room? So we have this staircase. We have this tunnel down below where this circle extends again. This wall is also that circle. What else have we got? Okay, so if we're up here, we can just walk across. That's nice. And if we're up here, we can just jump through these holes. So that's also nice. And if we're even dropped down onto this plateau, we can go through here and we can enter the room like that. Well, regardless, we're in the room now, and let's see what this room has to offer. So first, we have a jump pad here, little one. It'll just bring you from the lower platform to the higher platform. Here you can walk around, more curved edges, more armor, and really get a good vantage point over anybody inside of this arena or room, or whatever you want to call it. Here, a little shrine to myself and the guy who helped me set up MMD, his logo. Not that this adds anything functional to the level or whatever. Yeah, so if you're up here, you know, you got more cover from these boxes, from all that stuff in there. There's a big pillar there, a big pillar there. There's a difference in height between this floor and that floor over there. So there's even boxes there. So there's a lot of cover there for them. No cover for us here, so we can only use this cover. And luckily, we can jump up here, get the higher ground again over all that over there. There's also an armor here if you're lucky and on time, so we can just pick that up and yeah, not be in so much trouble. Being down here in this pit is obviously dangerous. There are ways out. There seems to be some staircases and such that I've created to get out. But if you're really in a pinch, take this teleport. That seems to have brought me above the teleport and turned my direction. So that's a good way to get back to the higher ground in this same area. Seems you're pretty stuck though. This is where you sort of end up, and there's cover on both sides, but not the best cover. So walls with holes in them. But yeah, you can get around nicely here, jump around, go anywhere pretty much to get other stuff. Well, I like what I did with this pillar here. It wasn't being supported at the bottom, so I added another chunk. Well, anyway, so that's that for this room. This room also has this side area, so if you take this little jump pad, that's another way out of the bottom area. You end up on this pretty low area here, where you can just yeah, you have lots of cover. Again, lots of curved edges here by the looks of it. But you have lots of cover here, which you can use to take out the enemy. Yeah, or just flee. So from here, the only way to get to the other rooms are let's see, we can take this teleport, and then up top we can just take a right turn and another right turn, and we've ended up in that room. We could even take a left turn and another left turn, and we end up in that room as well. If we're on this floor, we can just walk across. There's nothing really stopping us there. Same goes for this guy. If we're on this floor, we can just, walk across, bunny hop, whatever. If we're over here, same thing. We can just walk straight across. Nothing really stopping us in our path over there. So it seems that it's quite easy to get over there. It reminds me a lot of this room where, getting from this room to that room is pretty much just walking a straight line. So, yeah. Obviously, we can also, if we're at the top floor, by the way, just, walk, or at least if we're at the back of the room at the top floor, we can walk like this through this center tunnel, and then we can make our way to that other room too. Well, I think that was it, people, with regards to my map editing history. If you want to see more, or if you have any comments, questions, please add them. If you have any requests, shout out. I kind of like doing this stuff. If you need any advice, if you want to have some of the map files, also let me know, because I'd like to share them with whoever's interested. So, if you want to work on them maybe together, or like make them even better, or I don't know, just anything in particular, don't hesitate to ask. I don't make videos very often, but if you want to see what I'm up to, then don't forget to subscribe. Share the love, send this to some people who have a nostalgia feeling when it comes to Quake or like old retro games and such. Do as you please, but by all means, keep it friendly, and see you next time. Bye.